Move on to our 6.3, consideration of presentation on cannabis policy update process. Community Development Director Maria Turner will be coming up and go forward from there.
Hello, Maria Turner, Community Development Director. I had it all ready. All right. I appreciate the board hearing this update on the cannabis regulation update process. As the board is well aware, there are many changes that will be integrated into the future Article 73. Our department took time to take a look at every single item and actually separate it out in what we feel easily qualifies in CEQA for the common sense exemption versus which topics or items could take a little more review. We have presented sort of this list breakdown in the staff report. And so what you have listed first in the bullet points is the article, or is the one that we think we can have done by the end of this year. Those will be, or that ordinance will be an amendment to Article 27, the existing ordinance for cannabis, and all of our other zoning permits and minor and major use permits. Excuse me. The timeline for this first ordinance amending Article 27 remains the same, mostly as listed in the staff report. We did present an update, or this update, to the Planning Commission at their October 9th meeting. We do intend to have a draft ordinance available for the Planning Commission by its November 13th meeting. And then the only date that's actually a little squishy is that November 18th meeting, because I want to make sure that the comments from the Planning Commission, the comments from the Ag Advisory Committee, and County Council and staff are all on the same page. So that meeting may change from November 18th to a later meeting. It'll be as soon as possible within the same calendar year. Also taking, excuse me, sorry, also taking into account making sure we have all 5 supervisors present at the meetings. Holiday scheduling of agendas gets a little sketchy. So if we could take a moment and go over what is in the draft ordinance to amend Article 27. It is that first list of bullet points on page 1 of your staff report. Increasing the setbacks from off-site residences from 200 to 500 feet.
Do I say that?
A cap in the size of the commercial canopy at 20 acres. And I can stop anytime, Chair, so
Yeah, I
you know,
was
if you
going to go
want
ahead and
Okay, I think when we had spoke to you early on, we had stated from 500 to 1,000 feet, we weren't sure where we were going to put it. So that note, that it was ambiguous as far as where we hadn't made a decision.
Sure, yeah, I started with 500 because that's where I had clear consensus.
Okay.
But definitely open to having that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Incomplete and abandoned applications. This establishes a process for staff to get them off of our books in case of extended incompleteness or lack of response, thank you, from the applicant. Application and qualifications for background clearances. We will synchronize with the state regarding identification of those responsible and having ownership in a permit or license. This is directly to address the concerns expressed by Treasurer Tax Collector Patrick Sullivan in previous meetings. Active warrant and review for property owners and applicants. After the posting of this agenda, I did have a conversation with the sheriff, who indicated that we cannot request an active warrant search. There are very stiff regulations by the state on how that can come about, and it's mainly just for law enforcement purposes. But what we do intend to do is add some wording that should we become aware of any active warrants for property owners or applicants or any members of the permit party, it will result in setting aside, tabling the processing of that application until resolution.
Chair?
Yes.
Can I ask something on that? Do they let you know when there's been an warrant or something along those lines on a cannabis grow? How do you know about them? In other words, are there warrants and
They would have to just notify us if they were aware of
And
them,
it
but
does-
they're not
do you-
going to do a search. for
okay,
it.
but are they notifying you now at this time? Is that something you've asked for, requested that they
No,
contact?
this would be new.
I think the
Supervisor
better,
Tues, go ahead.
sorry, Chair.
ahead.
I think the better question is, have you in the past been informed of warrants on a application or a property owner in the past?
I don't know. I could defer to staff,
I
who
can
will
tell
probably be texting me momentarily.
tell you yes.
Oh, good.
The
Well, thank
answer
you.
is yes. You and I have
Okay.
had this conversation. I've had the conversation with the sheriff. You didn't have the language in here to do anything with it.
Right. Great. And we will take care of that. Method of calculating the canopy. This is just to more of a notification that our department, upon annual compliance monitoring, we do an actual assessment of total canopy to make sure that it is matching what was approved on the site plan. We will do our best to stay up to date with whatever measurement the state is using. So if they change, we'll change. But that is for the ease of our permittees, so they don't get caught in the middle of being fine in our calculation, but off with the state or the other way around.
Okay, on that, the tax base that it was approved, Measure C establishes the square footage based on the cultivation area
Yes.
or
canopy,
the entire.
the entire area is known as the cultivation area. The specific area for canopy is called the canopy area.
Okay, and we're calculating under the cultivation area. Question.
I would defer that to the treasurer tax collector because I do not do any taxation.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. I do believe, though, there was previous board action to modify it from cultivation area to canopy area. But again, I'll defer to the treasurer tax collector. Setbacks from industrial hemp and commercial cannabis canopy. This is to aid our staff in being able to differentiate what is the cannabis canopy that is regulated by us and what is the hemp canopy that is actually under the jurisdiction of the agricultural commissioner. But since there is no requirement for distancing, and it kind of looks the same when we're out there, this will help our staff.
Now, is it true that you cannot grow both crops on the same parcel?
Not on the same premises. And so that's different than the same parcel.
It is different.
And we take a look at premises by identifying what's within that fenced area. You're not going to grow hemp within your canopy area, but we need the additional clarification because there are no setbacks currently for hemp.
Okay, but what about, so that you say that within the canopy area, so that was something that felt ambiguous to me?
We use the state's definition for premises.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. Scenic corridor setbacks, this is still under discussion with staff. We do have, there was a lot of conversation regarding where was that 500-foot distance of a scenic combining overlay to be placed. How did that come about? And it turns out it's a long used internal process. So this one is actually open for further discussion on how we're going to assess it in the future and make modifications if necessary. So we're not done on that one. Metric track and trace tag destruction after use. This is to come into synchronization with the state. In the commercial cannabis cultivation exclusion areas, we are adding the land to 7.79 Rumsey, which is known as public lands. We're making clarification on that the 1,000-foot setback would start from there, that 7.79 Rumsey spot or line. In the farmland protection zone, greenhouse construction shall utilize those anchor points rather than pouring a concrete slab foundation. Setbacks from water courses, we are going to synchronize with the California State Water Resources Quality Control Board. And this would be for all class 1 through 4 water courses.
And what is that? Is that 150 feet?
It varies. Let me pull that up for you. Or we had a table that I didn't put in this. I can get it for you. And because we're synchronizing with the state, we will write that we are synchronizing with the state so that if they pivot or change, ours pivots and changes. And it is 150 feet from class 1 and 2, which include perennial water courses and water bodies like lakes, ponds, springs, as well as intermittent water courses or wetlands. That'll be 150. And then ephemeral water courses will be 50 feet. Then man-made irrigation canals, water supply reservoirs, hydroelectric canals, that support native aquatic species. There's an established riparian vegetation zone, which we already have in our zoning code. Construction hours, operational hours, and delivery hours. This was a recommendation that came out of the task force. And it pretty much mirrors a lot of other ag as well. Opt-out and reduced canopy process. Notification to staff will be, or to the department will be due by June 1st. This is to enable staff to have a timely turnaround for the report that we send down to the tax collectors that they use for the assessment purposes. Opt-out to not be allowed for consecutive years. In already existing code, the Lake County Code, on non-use of a permit or an inactivity of that permit activity for 2 years results in the expiration of a use permit. This was problematic for cannabis because it makes it different than all the other permits. And so we're going to go back trying to sort of streamline, make cannabis use permits as similar to the other use permits as possible. Streamline that to not be allowed for consecutive years. So this still allows some flexibility for the business owner or the permit owner, while not causing confusion as far as normal use permit expirations. Voluntary termination of use for an approved project. This is an already approved permit, not a withdrawal of an application, and it will be a new process. But this has come up due to requests from our permittees and staff. Additional clarification on expiration, 2 years of inactivity. Removal of the 10-year permit limit. This would also then remove the instructions regarding reapplication. And this is another instance of making the cannabis use permits similar to all other conditional use permits in that they go with the land. They last as long as the use is there unless there's a need for now either a voluntary termination or a revocation. And then the addition of a $5,000 restoration bond with Lake County as the obligee. I don't even know how to pronounce that word. Sorry. Obligé. I love it. Thank you. That's much better. Again, proposed timeline, we've already accomplished bullet point number 1 with the Planning Commission on October 9th. We do intend to present this draft ordinance on November 13th, and we'll follow thereafter with the Board of Supervisors. Items not included in this Article 27 amendment talk about air quality, water use, additional prohibited activities, shared some of the new permit uses that the board has approved in concept, type S shared manufacturing, type 19 retail sales delivery only, type 10 retail sales with on-site consumption. It's the on-site consumption that hasn't been, that would be a new addition to land use. The temporary cannabis events with on-site consumption, and dealing with the concentration of retail sales locations. The last item for your board's consideration today is recognition that in the years that we have been going through cannabis permit process, as well as annual compliance monitoring and dealing with complaints, the two main topics of concern have been odor impacts and water impacts. The board has taken steps, particularly during that the drought we went through, to require hydrology reports to try to deal with the water issues. And so we do still, even though we don't have a drought, the department is fully authorized and has continued to require hydrology reports on any use permit that's proposed to use ground or surface water. And so we are looking to answer those questions of how much water is available, how much is this project going to use, what will be the impact on the existing water, and who will that affect? A lot of our complaints have been about odor impacts, and we do not have established thresholds for what creates a significant impact for odor when we analyze those. We've been working on different ways that we could address that within our code, specific to your odor mitigation plan, your property management plan, requiring filtration, vegetative screening, things like that. But we don't have established thresholds for what is a significant impact. How do we measure it and how do we mitigate it? Can we mitigate it? And so I wanted to present to the board an option which involves attachment number 1, which is the estimate. We asked a planning firm that we're already working with right now on Lake County 2050 to just give us an estimate. What would a programmatic EIR to establish thresholds and find mitigations for odor impacts look like? And so they came back with the attachment, about $250,000 in about 8 months. And I'm just presenting that to the board as something to think about, because it helps us when we're doing our CEQA evaluations to have established thresholds that are based in science that we can rely on, as well as it helps not only during the CEQA analysis process, but also later when evaluating complaints to establish or assess whether our permittees are in compliance with their approved permits or if they're violating. So I wanted to hand that to the board, not necessarily as it would be holding over us moving forward with the remaining items from the permit, but rather as an option for the board to discuss and give staff direction. And that concludes my presentation. I am happy to answer any questions.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Thank you for the presentation. So let's break it down between the programmatic EIR and the list of things that can come to us more directly due to meeting the CEQA exemption. I know that we gave you direction to look at things that didn't require CEQA to bring back to us. I feel the list is overwhelming to the point that it's going to take a whole lot longer to ever get to our First Amendment, just because there's going to be some nitpicking on very specific things. Other things such as the scenic corridor setback, I think that's just a scenic corridor setback issue, not a cannabis issue. that in my opinion has impacts on all other projects where it's not defined. And I think that it should just be a separate thing and not specifically cannabis. And then also the voluntary termination of a use permit, I think should just be a general update to our zoning ordinance, not a cannabis. What if somebody wants to get rid of a permit for whatever it is that they were doing before? So I don't think some of these are strictly cannabis related. I'm going to provide what I think are not the easiest. Even the things I would like to put on the list for us to amend as quickly as possible are going to be complicated. But the increased setbacks from off-site residents, I think, is of utmost importance. And I am wide open for a tiered approach. We have a 10,000 square foot minor use permit. That should be a certain number of feet. Whatever number of acres should be a number of feet. And I know that we've gone all the way, at least in the past, 70 or 80 acres. That should not be 500 feet if you have a 20-acre ranch right next to you. So I would like to see a tiered approach on how we can look at setbacks from off-site residences. I don't have very specific guidance to provide what the criteria would be, but I think that would be the best approach. Because going with 2,000 feet just because that works for 20 acres, that sucks for the small farmer that wants to do a 10,000 square foot area that will not create an odor in the same way, where they have to meet that threshold. So I think a tiered approach would be the best. Application and qualification for background so that we can add the property owner, 100%. And the active warrant review, I understand that you're not the one to do that, but it would come along with the messaging from our sheriff department after doing the live scan and background checks on their own, that if they find something, they provide you that information. And then the last one that I think is another one that's important is the setback from watercourses. Our current ones are not even applying with the states. It's all 100 feet when the state has 150 feet for certain waterways. And I thought I heard you incorrectly that you said it was either 50 feet or 150 feet. Did I hear that correctly?
I read off of the table from the water board.
I think it was 50 for the formal.
Right, yeah, 50 from class threes, I think.
And then,
150 from.
But I thought you put one.
No, yeah,
together.
150 from class one. Sorry, you're right. I misread that. 100 from class two and 50 from ephemeral water.
And right now we do 100 feet from all. And I think it's good to be in the state standards because it's confusing when we don't hit the 150 when we say 100. Obviously, we have to follow what the state says for that.
Sure.
But I just think it's easier if we just follow the state. And the last one I will add is the commercial cannabis cultivation exclusion area of the 7.79 Rumsey. I think it's important to protect our lake, and within the public land, that means that it's 1,000 feet away from that. And I just think those are priorities that I can identify specifically from the list. The rest, I am not. It has to happen tomorrow, and I don't want to have so many things in the amendment that we end up slowing down the entire process, because even the list that I provided currently is going to be difficult. We've already received emails about setbacks and things like that. When it comes to the programmatic EIR, odor is going to be tough. I think the setbacks are going to help, and looking at a zoning is going to be the best way also too. And so to me, that's a much larger topic than what we have in front of us. But odor, I think, is going to be really difficult. But I thought you had talked to us that we were purchasing an olfactor meter. Have we purchased one?
We have one in code enforcement.
and-
we have no thresholds to establish the data that we get from.
There is nothing anywhere within the state of California, Santa Barbara, or anywhere else that uses anything for guidance at all that we can copy and paste from? Or are we really starting from scratch and kind of tackling? I mean, that's one of the reasons we sorry to air quality, got rid of air quality, is they were still waiting for the science, but yet collecting money from cannabis farmers. If we're creating the setbacks, I'm not sure that we are in the position to be the leader on that, for that, rather than zoning and setbacks ourselves. So odor is one that I'm confused how we're going to get there, because farming just smells. Don't build a house in agricultural land and then complain about ag. That's just my personal opinion. Might piss off some people. But it's just, it's going to be a really difficult task. The water thing for the programmatic EIR has so many more uses for other projects and other things happening in our county than just cannabis. So absolutely in favor for that. So those are my comments.
Do you open it to the public, or do you want to? That's it,
I'm okay with looking at the tiered approach for the setbacks. But I am in favor of just moving ahead with all of these things at once. I know you've done a whole bunch of work. We've had the same conversation here so many times, just this year, but over the years. There's just a lot of things in here that will make a big difference, like the June 1st opt-out. So I would just like to just keep the momentum going, keep on this list. If you want to look at the setbacks tiered options, that does make sense. And then I am in favor of looking at the programmatic EIR and getting a consultant involved to help.
Vice Chair?
Couple of questions on Supervisor Sabatier's points on the scenic corridor setbacks. Is there already work we're doing in other areas where that could just be like he said, a general county issue, whether it's cannabis or some other project?
It could definitely impact other projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, because I agree on those, I believe it was the scenic corridor and the permits.
The voluntary termination.
Yeah, those I think could apply to any project. And then on the other stuff, I mean, I don't see why we can't just try to move forward with the updates that we can. I want to get this done sooner than later. I realize that the EIR stuff's going to take a while, but I think if we can move forward and get these other ones that don't need EIR out of the way, that's kind of where I'm sitting, but I want to hear from the public too.
And I did not mean to imply that these others that are left out would require an EIR, but rather that we need to take a little bit more time to look at those internally as staff.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak after the public speaks.
All right. I'll open it up for the public at this time. If you want to come up and speak on this item, we'll give you 3 minutes and we'll go from there.
Good afternoon, Tom Lasik. A couple things. One is that I want to focus on is the opt-out. The opt-out, as I understand it, is to avoid having to pay taxes for a year that the grower decides not to grow. I don't think Measure C covers that. And it is actually a change in the formula that only the voters can approve. So I question that just sort of on a legal standing grounds, whether opt-outs is really something that we can entertain. That being said, assuming that opt-outs are acceptable, as a property owner that lives next to multiple cannabis growers and one that's been abandoned now for about 3 years, I've asked CDD, okay, they haven't grown in a couple of years, does their permit expire? And they say, oh no, as long as they pay the $1,000 or whatever the number is, we just keep it going. That's got to get fixed. I don't care how, but that's just got to get fixed. It's not the highest and best use of the land to leave it abandoned and trashed. With regard to the EIR, I would exercise caution. I personally think the best practice is a programmatic EIR. When you look at other municipalities, they do a full programmatic EIR. The concern I have with this one is it's so limited to odor that I'm not sure if it's going to withstand any challenge because it starts getting into the realm of piecemealing. You're supposed to look at the whole. It's called a programmatic EIR for a reason. You're supposed to look at the whole of the project or the program, and I could not find anywhere where they just did something on one thing or just did something on odor. I'm also concerned that we said we're going to have to wait for odor and water, which are the two of probably the three biggest concerns from the community, and that's going to take 12 months. Then something needs to be done sooner than that. And then as far as the cost of the EIR, they all run about 600K to $1 million. So a low ball of 250, I think should raise a red flag that you're probably not getting what you can actually use and be effective with. And they usually take 12 months to 18 months or longer. And this one, actually 18 months to 30 months. And this one is, I think it was actually quoted at 12 when I looked at the proposal, but now we're being told it's 8. I'm not sure if that's actually realistic. So I caution the board that they don't get into an expectation this will actually be done in 8 months. It's not, that would be unprecedented. The reality is it takes a lot longer. But a programmatic ER is not a bad idea, but it needs to be for the program, not just for one or two things. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could add a little clarification, please. Piecemealing in the CEQA terminology is not taking the entire project for environmental analysis. A programmatic EIR focusing on a topic specific is not piecemealing. Additionally, I have great confidence in both the amount and the timeline, since this is a contractor that we have been working with for the last year and a half. And I think that because it is so focused, it would not be as much as other EIRs, but I do have confidence in the timeline. Not that I'm presenting this to you for its direct consideration. It was only prepared for an example.
For today, yeah.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Margot Kambara for Lake County Community Action Project. The county's current and proposed revisions to the cannabis cultivation tax risk violating Proposition 218 and the voter intent of Measure C. While these actions may appear administrative, their cumulative effect redefines a tax base approved by the electorate. Measure C established a square footage-based tax on cultivation area. Voters expected both the tax rate and the method of calculation to remain stable, ensuring reliable public revenue in exchange for allowing this industry to operate. When your board temporarily shifted the tax base from total cultivation area to canopy area and later adopted a standing opt-out program, allowing permit holders to waive or reduce their tax liability by electing not to plant, these actions substantially narrowed the taxable base. Under Article 13C of the California Constitution and supporting case law, any change to the basis, calculation method, or incidence of voter-approved tax constitutes an imposition of a new tax requiring voter approval. Aligning the county's calculation with the state's narrower canopy definition, or maintaining an opt-out policy that exempts large portions of the permitted land from taxation, triggers a Prop 218 requirement. The fiscal consequences are equally significant. Lake County currently has more than 22 million square feet of approved cultivation area. At Measure C's authorized rates, even assuming all cultivation were outdoor, the county should be receiving more than $22 million annually. Instead, nearly 80% of approved area is non-producing due to opt-outs and site abandonment. Actual revenue has fallen to roughly $2.6 to $3.5 million per year, an effective rate of about 11 cents per square foot, far below what voters approved. Meanwhile, the cannabis program operates at a net cost to taxpayers, accumulating deficits of approximately $8.7 million to date and projected to exceed $10.6 million next year. In effect, the county's current policy has converted a voter-approved revenue source into a taxpayer-funded subsidy for the cannabis industry, an outcome at odds with the intent of Measure C and the fiscal integrity required under state law. Respectfully, we ask the board to abide by the statutory requirements of Propositions 218 and 13 and to revert to the tax rates and formula authorized by the voters through Measure C. Doing so maintains compliance with state law and preserves the integrity of voter-approved tax. If the county wishes to make the county make the canopy calculation or opt-out program permanent, those changes must be submitted to the voters for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Here comes somebody.
Hi, I'm Charles Morris, Middletown. My concerns are basically, you hit some really good key points, and that was a very good report that you did. With odor, can I suggest to fix the odor thing? Scenic Middletown is between the Napa County line and the Middletown itself. So that's a scenic area where people come in and get the impression. A lot of cities, they do not allow pig farmers to have pigs in those areas where you can smell that stuff. So in the summertime, when people come into Lake County, and you can smell it even with the gorilla grillers, you're like, whoa, okay, yeah, we know what's here. You can't see it always, but you can smell it. So there has to be some kind of ordinance out there that they use for pigs that we can use for marijuana. That's just my suggestion. The other thing is we have a huge water problem out there. I really can't say that doing anything in the scenic corridor is going to be good, so I'm really against that. But the biggest thing is I've been with math for over 10 years, and I questioned the sheriff, and I talked to him about what's happening with marijuana. He said two things to me. Sheriff Martin said two things. He said, number one, everybody's shaving their beards, and they're not going to go out and find those guys who are growing weed. They're still growing it. Right now, it's making it through the back door as a black market weed, and it's getting into the system. Nobody's paying taxes on that, okay? So we're not doing that. And then on top of it, there's no enforcement for the kids because we're not going into the schools and actually enforcing the laws that say if you're too young, and that's it. We know, I've been a teacher, we know that it destroys the brain. Okay, when your brain is still growing up to age as much as 25, it's gonna make you dumber. It's basically, the science is simple. We really need to have some type of enforcement there. But Sheriff Martin is not going to get the money if we aren't getting any. And these numbers are insane, going from 22 million to 2.5 million. We have to tax it, and we have to assume it's there even when it's not there. And if Sheriff Martin has to go out and get rid of the gorilla growers so the honest tax-paying growers can do it, then we need those guys to grow the beards and go out in the woods again. We can't just act like, we've lived happily ever after since we've legalized it. I think there's a lot of work here. If you like cannabis or not, it's here to stay. But I think that we have to be realistic about what is our future and what kind of impression are we giving to the children? What kind of impression as a society are we going to be? And it just hurts my heart that this kind of issue is even being considered. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, supervisors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Autumn Carsey. I operate several businesses here in the county in relation to cannabis. I'm here to speak on the proposed cultivation and business tax rates. Cannabis is the second highest tax generator.
Can we talk about that during the tax rate? We're on the task force changes. I want to hear what you have to say for the tax rate.
I can save the
but
tax rate.
I feel like we're kind of
Sure.
conflating the two all in one.
Thank you for that.
It's okay. I have two comments today. So I'll just start with the first one on the proposed EIR relevant to CEQA expertise. So I want to speak in opposition of spending $250,000 where odor is a primary focus. According to the consultant's proposal, the EIR would cost anywhere from $227,000 up to $250,000 with the contingency. The proposal includes 27 meetings, multiple draft cycles, and a cost structure that increases the volume if public comment is high. That means the more people complain, the more taxpayers pay. Odor is subjective, compliance is not. While cannabis is being singled out, while agriculture occurs all around us. Vineyards apply sulfur, cattle ranches emit methane and waste odors, fertilizer and manure are spread countywide throughout agriculture. Yet no other crop is being asked to prove that it doesn't smell. If odor becomes a new enforcement standard, CEQA becomes a weapon, not a tool. We're already seeing CEQA weaponized throughout the county. The same group of individuals demanding stricter environmental regulation for cannabis, the people who routinely email and show up before this board, illegally trespassed onto my private property with chainsaws, carved an illegal trail through habitat that was sensitive, and 2 weeks before my appeal hearing. This is not an allegation, it's documented, captured on multiple game cameras, recorded by California Fish and Wildlife, and my biologists, verified by Conser, an environmental firm which stated this is in fact a new trail. They then proudly posted about it on social media. The irony here is uncanny, so I have to mention it. We're being asked to spend taxpayer money to satisfy those demanding environmental oversight who don't follow environmental laws themselves. Instead of funding an EIR that will only empower obstruction, I propose a better investment. Use the same $250,000 to hire a CEQA environmental expert on staff full-time. Give the county a permanent expert instead of renting one for a year. Support all CEQA needs, not just odor. Speed up project processing, reduce consultant dependency and delay, and actually improve environmental compliance. For the amount we're spending on the AIR, the county could hire a qualified CEQA planner or environmental scientist for multiple years. That creates institutional knowledge, builds capacity, and it pays dividends on future projects. The EIR is not about odor, it's about power. Let's invest in solutions, not a process that rewards complaint volume. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the chambers? And if not, I know there's some on Zoom, possibly. iPhone 12 Pro Max, if you can unmute.
Guy Lewall, Pillsbury Family Farms, and I do not support this at all. Let me be clear, Director Turner isn't here to present the cannabis ordinance. She's here on a normal day to spend more county money to further her own incompetence. On page 9 of the PlaceWorks agreement, it clearly states that both PlaceWorks and county staff must be held accountable. Yet what we continue to see is the opposite, a pattern of avoidability at every turn. Case in point, in the county memo, it states metric tags and their destruction. My farm was instructed by county staff to hold on to metric tags for annual compliance inspections, even though it goes against state law. When my farm filed complaints with Director Turner herself and with this board, they go unanswered. Now this board is being asked to approve another costly expenditure, one that could be the applicant's responsibility and not the county's. We've experienced per firsthand is plausible deniability being used as a management strategy. Let's talk about the live scan processes, the same processes that every cannabis applicant is required to complete. The state's own application guidelines say that the live scan needs to be completed once and remains valid for the duration of the permit unless the applicant is arrested and rearranged. So I asked the county and I asked Director Turner, how many cannabis applicants in Lake County have been arrested and rearranged since 2015? Not one. None. If Director Turner can tell us how many of them have been arrested and rearranged, I would appreciate that information to be shared. Why are we still seeing this board to use background reviews as a tool to stall, deny, and punish? Because on a normal day, we see Director Turner say that it's going to take 2 years. Is PlaceWork going to follow Director Turner's lead and place applicants under duress to keep the process moving? Because accountability starts with holding Director Turner accountable herself.
Can we stick
Instead,
to
this board has allowed her
the
culture
actual
to thrive.
item?
How can you support her actions when you refuse to investigate valid complaints or even respond to them? Will this county continue its pattern to take county's applicants, deny their applications, or force them to wait and reapply to pay even more fees? Because thank you, Supervisor Pyska, for pointing out that major issue. Lake County's cannabis application system and culture speaks for itself under the management of Director Turner. So I ask this board again, how can you justify approving this expenditure knowing Director Turner won't allow projects to move forward for another 2 years? Because under Director De Leon, we've seen it happen in 6 months. Perhaps we should bring Director De Leon and pay for his medication.
Can we concentrate
I would rather
on this
deal with, I do not
item
recall
and
them
not
being placed under
some of
duress.
this other discussion,
Director
please?
Turner, if that's okay with you, Eddie. Or should applicants be placed under duress? Muleham.
All right. Is there any other guest?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Angela Amaral. I'll make this quick. So the there was a scenic combining survey created by Director Darby, which was very insightful when we're talking about scenic combining areas that maybe you guys want to look into. Also in the original draft Article 73, which was created by Andrew Amelung, the previous cannabis manager, it included monitoring thresholds for odor and olfactor limits. Also, if we're going to consider a PIR, will it go out for a full RFP? I understand PlaceWorks' estimate was just for background, but seeing how long some of the processes have taken with PlaceWorks, I would be a little concerned and reluctant to get on another big project with them. At another meeting, Director Turner stated that that enforcement in the cannabis ordinance lies in other ordinances. And I would like to ask if there can be a section added that references where enforcement codes and regulations can be found and used, so that people aren't searching for these documents. And then also, we skipped the second or third item, which was the cap and size. And it was a talk about cap and size of reducing the canopy to 20-acre maximum. I'd like to request that we stay to a 5 to 10 acre maximum canopy, just because right now less than 10% of the approved projects are over 10 acres. I think there's 19 projects that are over 10 acres currently in the county. So a cap size of 5 to 10 acres seems prudent at this point. Thank you for your time.
All right. iPad?
Hello, my name is Richard Durham. I'm both a realtor and a cannabis cultivator here in Lee County. What really gets to me is how people like to attack cannabis, and one of their biggest weapons is the odor. I just heard today one of the speakers say that people come into the county midsummer and they can smell cannabis all over the place. Well, let me tell you, the cannabis plant itself does not smell at all. What they're talking about is the smell from the ripe flower. The ripe flower starts to ripen in late September, October, and it's harvested usually right around October 31st to November 5th. So the entire year is only affected for about 6 weeks of odor, and you'd have to be pretty close to the grow. So I just, when people bring up this full odor thing, it's really taboo because it's not that prominent. Yes, if you're 100 feet away from a fully ripened garden, you're going to smell it. But the day they harvest it will be the last day you smell it. So with that, I just would like the board to consider that really odor is not that giant of a thing. It's a good weapon for people who don't like cannabis. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
All right. RTNC, if you can unmute.
Oh, hi, Holly Harris, Clear Lake Oaks. I had just 3 points that I wanted to make. First of all, I agree with Angela regarding the skipping over the size of the projects. 20 acres is still very, very large. 5 or 10 acres would be better, and smaller sizes would also help with odor issues. Then the next one is on the setbacks, the increased setbacks. I think the tiered approach is a great idea. But I also would like the board to consider removal of cultivation from the suburban residential reserve zone. Those are typically very smaller acreage, minimum 3 acres. And it's the immediate buffer from residential to more rural settings. Oftentimes it's designated as such for potential expansion of the community growth boundaries. Right now, I have taken a look at it, and I believe Director Turner said during one meeting that there were no projects currently in the suburban reserve zone, so that would make sense to remove it. And then my last point was a couple of years ago, the board requested the task force to take a look at dispensaries in Zone C2 which is currently a use by right. The task force did take a look at it and unanimously approved to make it a major or minor use permit in C2. I'd like to ask the board to consider looking at that. Right now, we've just had a dispensary pop up in Lucerne, and there's another one popping up in Middletown because it is a use by right. Thank you for your time.
All right. James Anderson.
Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is James Anderson with Everview Law. I'm an attorney specializing in land use and environmental law, and I represent a number of cannabis clients in this county and across the state. So I just have a few quick comments on this, and I'll have more comments when a draft version of the ordinance update is available. My first comment relates to the setbacks from offsite residences. I would advise, I like Supervisor Sabatier's suggestion about tiering it. I would also suggest adding flexibility and allowing nearby residents to opt out of the setback if necessary. That creates more flexibility for cannabis cultivators who are working with their neighbors to make their business work. My second comment relates to the cap in size. I don't think that a 20-acre cap in size is particularly helpful. If a project is in an appropriately sited location and won't have impacts on neighbors or any other surrounding property and is otherwise, viable there, I think allowing larger operations is more economically feasible. I mean, the fixed costs are there, the overhead is expensive. So if someone can cultivate a larger operation in, an environmentally friendly way in compliance with all the regulations, I would recommend that they're able to do so. So those are my comments on the ordinance update, and then a quick comment on the PERR for the odor. My concern with trying to set a threshold of significance for odor is incredibly difficult to quantify. And as has been said by several commenters, the odor from cannabis, whether or not it's objectionable is subjective. And so I'm concerned that opponents to cannabis projects will be able to use thresholds of significance that are created to further hinder or oppose cannabis projects, especially given that it's difficult to quantify, unlike other offsite impacts such as dust or noise or light or anything of that nature. So those are my general comments. I'd like to close by thanking staff for all their hard work on this. I know Director Turner has done a lot of work on this, and it's a big project, so we really appreciate her work on this going forward. So thank you, and have a good day.
No more hands in Zoom? All right, with that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the board. Anything else to add? Or go ahead, Supervisor Owen.
Okay, so now as I remember our meeting a couple weeks ago, we were going to be taking the road portion of this to the Ag Department, to the Ag Advisory Committee, as I believe.
The road standards were a separate item. They're not
Yes,
part of
yeah,
this update.
and that'll be coming forward, and I'm trying to get that going like November to get that finished up.
We're reviewing the meeting, but I thought the board direction was to have a meeting that included fire district and farm
Yes.
bureau but not an ag advisory committee meeting.
Oh, I thought it was the Ag Advisory is what I'd asked for, actually.
Yeah, let's.
We'll double check that video to see where
Okay.
it kind of.
Ag,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I'll get back to you directly.
With the
on that
fire,
one.
okay, and then looking at the setbacks, I know that there are a lot of concerns with that. The odor is huge. I am in the field where I believe that we need to maybe send this out and look at having the EIR bid on rather than Placeworks.
Should the board direct us for that, we would follow all county policies. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was just given to you guys as sort of an intro to the topic.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's it.
Supervisor Sabatier?
And I appreciate public comment because I think it hits on the point I was making that some of these things are complicated. A cap, I offered a cap on the size, but I'm not offering it as a priority because I know it's going to be a difficult thing to pass through, and I want something that passes through so we can make impact on these future applications as soon as possible. There's many comments I want to make, but I'm going to bite my tongue on some of them. One of them was for the setbacks. I disagree with getting residential approval or neighbor approvals, because what we've seen in the past is neighbors being approached with a bag of money. And I don't want coercion. I don't want anything. It needs to be a rule that everybody gets treated the same. Don't try to befriend your neighbor in different types of ways so that you can get a yes, because your neighbor is not permanent. The use permit is. And so I disagree with that level of flexibility. I think the tiered approach is the better approach, because our goal should be to minimize the odor that others are subjected to if they live nearby. And a good setback and good zoning is going to resolve a lot of that percentage of the issues. And I still believe we should prioritize on the list based on all the comments that we heard. It's going to be complicated already if we choose some rather than putting all of them in there, including the removal of the 10-year permit limit, which I agree with, but we're going to get a lot of pushback. And so I'm looking to simplify and make an impact rather than try to do what we all think is the right thing, which may only just find ourselves in an impasse.
I mean, I understand that too, with the conditions of approval. That's one of the biggest things I've always looked at, and I know if we can ensure those are, conducted, that's the thing for me. Yeah. But I won't go too further. It's Vice Chair, and then you can go next.
Okay.
I wanted to weigh in. I do think the tiered approach on the setbacks is probably going to be the best plan, because a lot of these circumstances are different, and one just standard setback, if you use the 500 feet example, might not fit every situation. So I think that serves us as well. Also agree. I don't like having exceptions for neighbors to sign off and waive
That was a good
those things, because also property changes over hands a lot, and don't want to lock something like that in. But I just wanted to weigh in on that point at this time on the setbacks, because I think that will. Odor is difficult, but I think we can mitigate some of it with that.
Yeah. On the odor mitigations, it's basically the setbacks, the size of the grow, and no zoning as I believe it was Holly that mentioned, the no zoning in the suburban residential area. I think that was appropriate comment on that.
The zoning sorry to interrupt you, just letting you know, the zoning districts for any new changes in zoning districts is not part of
okay.
Article 20.
Okay, I thought it was in here. Okay, I had a note on it for some reason. The other issue, so the size of the cannabis grow versus how far back it is. I'm kind of one that doesn't mind if it's a bigger grow, such as, say, for instance, Pasta Farms has a large amount, but we're not hearing complaints from their neighbors. So something along those lines, if it is placed, but when there's people around where it is affecting them. And as far as the gentleman that states that it's only a short time out of the year, you can go down 29 any time of the year pretty much between Middletown and Lower Lake. There's the area, I believe, where Miss Carsey's is. It's somewhere around in that area that you can smell it pretty much year round. So I don't know if that's ventilation or if there's people growing in that area. And I know there's different types of crops as well that they can plant. So some are on anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Water is the biggest is one of the other big issues that we have a lot of complaints on. And I think the follow-up with that, as well as the tags on the cannabis plants themselves, I think for us actually going back and making sure that they are in compliant is going to be the key to success here, because I know that we have people right now complaining in my district as well as other districts where they're not complying and the water is not available and they're hauling water. So those I think they just need to be pulled.
Hauling water is not allowed. So if you are aware of any complaints
We've
about
talked
that,
to you about it.
Okay, great.
Those I believe it was Randy, Phillips, is that it? No? Anyway, Pledger. And we've talked to you about that over the last few months several times, where they're hauling water into the plants and he is dry. So that's just one of them.
Thank you. We did finally receive a complaint from Mr. Pledger and are following up on that.
Thank you.
I think too, there it was mentioned about smelling cannabis throughout the year. I mean, I took a walk this morning at about 6 a.m. and you could smell cannabis everywhere in my neighborhood and nobody's growing. They're smoking it. And so, I mean, like, that's just something, I hear something about, odor all the time, but the reality is it could be hemp. It could be someone smoking it. And I do know that there's farms. Everything else I think we can work on, but I think sometimes when I hear the complaints about odor, I mean, they're still smoking it, and they're allowed to. So, I don't know. I just had to mention that. Go ahead, Supervisor Pyska.
Odor is always going to be a hard one to deal with, and once it's federally legal, then it's going to be a right to farm issue, and it's the same thing with going to Sonoma County and smelling all the cows in Napa. I was there yesterday smelling the crush. Agriculture is smelly. I think most of these things on this list we've talked about to death. We just need to make the decisions. I think we need to move forward with getting these things done. So I disagree with just picking a handful of them and moving them forward. Like, we have taken so much time from staff and from the public to talk about all of these things. We vetted them out, and I think we just need to move on.
Supervisors, about you?
Yeah, just the last thing. I was very focused on what was here in front of us. We're dealing with agriculture. I would like to see in the long run, if this is possible, and I know I've spoken with Director Turner about this, where if you're growing on ag land or on rural land, then we should look at, is there a way to do a reduction on the process to maybe a minor use permit? If you're doing it on rural residential, where in the title it says people will be living there, more so than ag, that's where we stay at the major for the more in-depth, because the amount of work your staff is going to, the amount of time being spent by our planning commission, the amount of time we spend with appeals, all of this process, in the long run, it's still just ag. And if you wanted to do 20 acres of carrots, nobody would care, and you'd be able to do it tomorrow. And so I feel like there's got to be a way, as long as it's zoned for those things that are prioritized for those things to happen. As soon as we get into areas where the location is more and more residential, then I would like to see that. That's just my personal opinion.
When we bring forward the draft Article 73 ordinance, it will include permit levels specific to zoning districts.
Right. With that, we are at what? We're moving forward with. I closed public comment.
No action by the board is required.
Okay.
This item is just.
So this is an update. We're giving our input, and we can move forward from there.
I am moving forward.
All right. Anything else? Did I leave anything out?
We didn't hear from you.
I've been
A little bit?
commenting. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm good.
That it?
Yeah. Everything's been said, because I wrote them down, I checked them, even the public said the things that I was going to say, especially when it came to, let me see. Just so you can know that I
The odor
had.
part.
Yeah, the odor, the C2 by right, I have an issue with that, because I have two in Lucerne, that's fine. I mean, it's C2 by right. That's what I've been telling people that are asking about permits and what they got to come up with. It has been by right, but eventually there might be 5 in Lucerne, and naturally there could be some in Nice. There's not one in Nice right now, but there was a proposed. What do they call those? Dispensary. There's one in Upper Lake, and so I know we talked also about possibly having a specific amount in each district or something of the like. I don't know. I think that by right, I think it's been happening quite some time. If we can look at minimizing that and having it in a different way.
I thought we had directed already for it to be a minor use and not like all of it, C2 or C1, that it be a minor use, because right now it's major use or by right. Is that a separate process?
That is technically, that was proposed as part of the second ordinance. However, we're happy to take a look and see if that can also qualify for the common sense exemption. We'll take a look at that, and we'll definitely add it on if if we can.
All right. Okay, I mentioned the 10-year permit, that's fine. Conditions of approval should be enforced or at least followed up through. One thing I didn't hear discussed, and I might have, I just missed it, was the bond. I would like to see the restoration bond match the hemp bond. I think it just makes sense, but that's
How much is the hemp bond?
Let's see. The hemp bond is.
I think the 5,000 bond was what they're able to get in the industry.
It's 5,000 for less than 10 acres. For equal to 10 acres, it's 10,000, and then additional 1,000 per acre, larger than 25 acres. In the hemp ordinance.
I think we can get the conditional use permit. I think it's a minor for C2. We can add that in
Okay.
to this draft. So if I could just recap to make sure I got it, we're going off the entire list. We're adding the conditional use permit in C2 for retail. We're going to come back with a tier set up for setbacks from offsite residences. And I hear general interest in the PEIR. Would you like to direct staff to look for the funding to pursue it? Or should we just stick a pin in it for now?
I would stick a pin in it, that's my opinion.
It may, some of the conversation was talking about how it has multiple applications, not specific to cannabis. So I can put it on a back burner for now.
I think water is
Yeah, we need to deal with
a massive importance to Lake County. We had issues during the drought, and I think knowing, and we've seen projects that we've denied because they're in locations that are obviously low on water already to begin with, and historically that's where dry wells start. I think we need to have a better understanding of our water systems below the ground and making sure that we don't hit a point of no return by putting things in place that are going to have a massive impact. So I'm absolutely in favor of doing, whether it's a PEIR or some kind of environmental review, so that we have a better understanding.
I saw 2 nods on that one.
No,
We have
I'm for
3.
it.
Agree.
Up to 5.
Agree.
Okay.
I think you got 5.
Okay. Excellent. Then what I'd like, if I could tell you what direction I'm looking for, then the board would just direct staff to look into options for a programmatic EIR regarding water impacts from all conditional use permits not limited to cannabis. Is that correct? Or do you want it specific to cannabis?
I think that there should be an emphasis on cannabis, since we don't go through the same process for other ag. That's just me.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
No.
Thank you.
Supervisor Sabatier?
I just want to say, you have dates here. You said you're going to try. I'm deleting those dates just because this is a large list for you to come back to us by the 18th. And I would like the Planning Commission to approve, because usually that's how we've done the land use ordinance changes, is it goes through them, they approve, and I don't want them to approve a concept or a draft. I'd like to
Understood.
go through
Thank
that.
you.
That's just me. That's
that
the way
makes-
we've done it historically, and I'd like to continue going in that direction.
Yeah, that makes,
It is a
Best.
time crunch, and we do have limited meetings due to the holiday season too. But I understood, and I see 3 nods on that one. 4, great. Thank you.
All right.
I feel very well directed.
All right.
Thank you, Miss Maria.
Thank you.
With that, we'll close this